This quick video will show you one way of creating a Revit model that's similar to this aquarium in Europe. I'd like to add here at the beginning of the presentation that scale does matter, and when I created this as a quick representation of how to create it, my panels ended up being 4 feet when they should be taller. So keep scale in mind as you're creating these original shapes. So let's get started by creating a new conceptual mass family, and then in the draw panel pick this polygon. If you change the sides to 8, and in the level 1 here I can pick the intersection of these two reference planes as my start point or my center. Here I'm going to draw a real small polygon, and then like I said, I could have drawn just a line and then used the midpoint of that line, but here I'm using the two intersections to draw the other one. And now I'll go ahead and make sure that it's lined up with the other polygon in its sides. I go ahead and click here for the outside polygon. If I select now the smaller polygon, I can pick create form to create my small face there. And then over here in the draw panel, I'll click on plane so I can create a reference plane. And the endpoints of one of the sides, you might not be able to see it. I'll use my escape key to end that. If I use my tab key to tab through that line, you'll see that there's your reference plane that you just created. And in the work plane panel, you can pick set and show. It's already showing it was already set. So now that reference plane is set, I can go to my spline in the draw panel and start to draw this spline. I'll click here at the endpoint. Now if I click once, that will be my reference point that I can start to work with to bring the top of this arc out. If you select more than one, then you'll have several points to work with if you needed an arc that did more than just curve. So I'll click here and then press enter. And now I'll go down to this plane right here. I don't have to set that plane as long as the surface is active, sort of like AutoCAD. If you are drawing on the face of a model, as long as it's highlighted, it will draw it on that face. I click 3. Click, 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 and then enter. You see how it went on that face. Now I can select here the smaller curve, hold my control key down, and select this larger curve and pick create form, solid form. Now this is a quick video. I probably could have made the center one smaller. Okay, so you don't have to set the plane current unless you're working on it extensively. I'm going to go ahead and select level 1 and pick set to set level 1 as the current plane, and then I'll be able to work on different planes as I go. So I'll use my tab key getting close to this polygon to select it, and I'm just going to go ahead and temporarily delete it. I might put it back in later, but now I can start to work with this curve a little bit. Click on the edge of this arc using your tab key if you need to, and you'll see that there are two different points. This bottom point with the arrows will move the entire piece in and out. We don't want that as much as we do want this reference point here. So we'll click on the reference point so that we can use these arrows to pull the top part of the arc out and possibly up. This is where you can start to work with it so that you can kind of get this shape the way that you want it. And then you can do the same thing with the other side. I held my shift key down and the wheel of my mouse to orbit around the model, but you could also, in the navigation tools here, click on this wheel, and here we have orbit. If you didn't have a mouse and you were working on your laptop, if I wanted to click on this face, you can get a little closer so that you can see that little reference point if you wanted to pull the arc closer to the middle and maybe up a little bit more depending on scale. And now let's set the first level plane current and go to the top view. You can go to the top view by clicking on here where it says top in the view cube. We can now rotate and copy this form that we created. Rest your pointer on the edge of it and use the tab key in order to select the form, and then pick rotate. When you use the rotate command, you can either hold your left mouse button down on this base point and then drag it to a different center of rotation, or you can pick in the options bar here, center of rotation place, and then pick where you want it. So in this way, I changed the center of rotation to the center of this polygon. And now if I come straight out this way and click on the midpoint of this line, that's my start angle. I can pull my mouse up here and click on the midpoint of this line, and I've just copied one of these forms up. Click rotate, put a check mark and copy, pick place for the center of rotation, and pick the intersection here of these two reference planes. Then click midpoint here, pull my mouse over, and pick midpoint here. So you can pause the video and continue using the rotate with the copy option to create this similar project. And you're probably wondering why we didn't use array. Well, it's grayed out. And even when you start a new mass file, it's grayed out. We can use array in the Revit file and in the family files, but it's not here yet in our mass file. So when you're done with these forms, you can click on the bottom left or bottom right corner of this view cube, bringing us back to the southeast isometric view. We could probably bring it into our project right now, or we could create another small polygon here that we could use to create a mass form as part of the building. So I'll just go ahead and start the polygon and click here and kind of bring that out to where I think I might want it. And then move your mouse around until you can kind of find that polygon. Select it and use create form to create this small center. You can adjust the height if you'd like. You can see that this is similar to the building that we're working with. We could take it to another level and curve this roof shape and pull back into a point the back sides of these arcs. But for now, if you look at it in a elevation view, you can see that we're developing the building form. So save the file and load it into a Revit project. You can start a brand new one here. Use the architectural template if you'd like. Then I'll go ahead and set it up with a 3D view by opening a 3D view. If you use Control Tab, you can tab over to this plan view and close out of it. It will bring you back to the family, and now I can load it into the Revit project file. The first dialog box you get is just telling you that the mask is turned off, so it's going to turn it on for you. And here's my shape. I can place it, and when I place it, I'll just get a warning. Sometimes you can ignore these warnings, but read through them because it's just saying that it's not a solid mass, so we can't compute the volume. And now you're ready to place your material by using Model by Face in the Massing and Site tab. There are times when we have unique roofs that we might not be able to use the roof tool, but the wall tool can work, and you may have to adjust the size of it. It could just be that, depending on the form. So unfortunately, I do find myself using walls on the roof. So I'm going to go ahead and use the wall tool. And over here, I'm going to click Edit Type and duplicate this generic wall so I can call it something else, like my roof. And now I can pick the structure edit button here so that I can change my material, clicking on the category, my category. If you're creating a new material, you should highlight the default material, right click and pick duplicate, and then change the name of it to whatever you'd like it to be called. In the graphics tab, I can change the color to white. That would be for the shaded view. And then, as we said before, in the appearance tab, we'll change the material for the realistic view and the rendering. If you want to just change the color to white, that works too. Or you can, at the bottom left corner, click on this little icon to open up the asset browser and change, if you'd like, the view to the thumbnail view. Now you can pick just about any one of these surfaces, although if I read the name of it, some of these are squares, so you want to be careful of that. Under the roofing materials for the appearance library, there really aren't any like smooth roof materials. What you could use is the standing seam roof and then change your image to customize it to your own image. Or what I'll do is just go to something like plastic and try one of these. I don't know what it looks like yet, but maybe a PVC white or a smooth white. I'll pick the smooth white, double click on it, close out of the asset browser. You can change here the glossiness of that finish if you'd like, and I'll go ahead and pick OK. And this might be a little thick, but I'll go ahead and pick OK. And now I can select here the top of each face of these arcs for my roof. If I change the shading to shaded, you'll see that you have this material. The 8-inch might be a little thick for what we're looking for in this drawing. You can always change the family. So you can select here the duplicated roof and then pick edit type. And under edit, we can change the thickness to something different so that it looks a little closer to our project here. The thickness, I changed it to 3. Keep in mind that the scale was not something that I started off with. These are probably too small. I'm going to go to the Architecture tab and pick Model Line. And with the Model Line tool, I'll click the midpoint of one of these outside polygon lines and then orbit over to the exact opposite side and click the midpoint there. And now I have a midpoint in the center. I'll escape out of that I can click on, because now I'm drawing these walls. I'm going to click on the Walls tool, and I'm just going to use here a generic 5-inch wall, and the height is going to be tall enough to clear the top part of the arc. So you may have to use something bigger than 20 feet. I changed this to unconnected and changed this to 20 feet because of settings that I had previously. So yours might be 30 or 40 feet in scale. And now I can click on here this polygon in the draw tool, 8 sides like we had, and click the center or midpoint of this line that I just drew. In the 3D view, you can really see the height and follow along here this path of intersections so that I can have a straight line and kind of pick a point that looks like the approximate placement of this wall. So through some exploring, I've noticed that if I join these two shapes, then I get that line that I can use to edit the profile. And then later on I'll change it into my curtain wall. So I can start in the Modify tab, the Join Geometry tool here, and then select the wall and the curved mass. You see how it is a little different. Escape out of that. Then this one is that this one has a line that will give me that tool I can use when I edit the wall. So I'll just work on this one. I'm going to select the wall, pick Edit Profile. So now with the Pick Lines tool, I can pick that intersection now that I join them and start to edit in the sketch mode this profile by deleting these other vertical and horizontal lines and keeping the base one. The main thing here is to check your corner. Make sure that these corners are matching, because depending on how you drew the original shape, these two might not be, see this? This might not be completely in line with this, and then you'll get an error. So I may have to just throw a line in here between these two so that it can close that profile. I'll pick the green check mark, and now I've got that cut piece. I can then change it to a curtain exterior glazing curtain wall, and you'll see that my scale is not right. My scale is off a little. This is 5 feet. So yours will be more appropriate to the scale. I can pick edit type, duplicate this so that I have a second glazing grid system, and change here this to something smaller. Unfortunately, it's going to be smaller grid size so that I can get the grid size that I need for that, that look. It looks a little bit more vertical. Okay, once you're done with that, you might want to put a base in this drawing. You do have this line that you can use to create a base. It might even just be a floor, the floor tool. Pick circle. You can pick the midpoint and create here a floor. Change the material if you'd like and work with it as we have been in this course. If you'd like to add people, even create another circle that would define the water. Okay, we could take it to another step and create topography and change that topography to water. In the assets, there is a material called water. This works for showing the form. If you do create topography, you want to go lower than the floor level when you're creating your elevation. For this presentation, we can go to shaded graphic display options and pick up our background color as maybe gradient. You can work with the colors a little bit, or you can bring in an image as we learned earlier. You can now turn off the masks, and when you turn off the masks, you'll see the actual materials. This material looks a little light in color, so you could use the tab key. Let's use the tab key to tab to one of these panels so that we can change the glass. And when we change the glass, we can go to edit type and go to glass material right here. And you could duplicate this so that you're not changing the glass that comes with your file. And in the appearance tab, instead of using clear, we can go to our assets again and find this glass material. There's several here to choose from. Here's a dark blue. Not sure how that's going to turn out, but I'll use it, try it out, and it won't look like it's changed until you go to realistic. When you go to realistic, you'll really see the difference in that material. Kind of blocks off the rest of it. We haven't added mullions yet. So if you go to the architecture tab and pick mullions and then all grid mullion or all grid lines, you can change your mullion to whatever mullion you have loaded. I'll change it to something a little smaller and then click on this grid. It may give you a warning because of the arc. Some of the mullions are going to be kind of short, so I'll go ahead and ignore the warning. So the last couple of things you might want to do here are to add material to this center part. You have to go back to masking and site and turn on your mask and then add a roof here and change the material if you'd like to make it lighter. Same thing with this floor. I didn't change the material yet, so I can change the material to something a little bit lighter. And then if you'd like to create a camera view, it might be a better presentation. If you create a camera view, you can do that right in the 3D view. Just go to here, this camera in the view tab or up here. And then right here in the 3D view, you can start back here and look towards it. And in that camera view, you can start to change some of the background colors and use this cropping to crop the image if you, for instance, would like to crop out the sky. Maybe you'd like just that one color. Under here, the visual displays, you can pick graphic display options. And this is where I started to put check marks in the cast shadows. And I I like using the ambient shadows. The ambient shadows give it that kind of soft shadow look. You can use here under lighting the sun intensity, ambient light, and shadows to control the look that you'd like for your project. Under background, as we did before, you can change the color and apply different visual graphics. Great. So if you want to add people, it's up to you. Maybe a railing around the edge here. Have fun and keep in touch. Contact me anytime if you need help or have any questions.